And then we will be able to share this with those who weren't able to join moving ahead. So you should have gotten a little button that says accept the recording. All right. Great. Well, again, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us for our Wisdom Community Forum. This is our January edition of the Community Forum for the Wisdom Study. We have an exciting speaker today and topic on nutrition and breast cancer risk reduction and breast cancer in general. If you haven't yet, please introduce yourself in the chat. I'll introduce myself. I'm Allison Fiscalini. I'm the director of the Wisdom Study based at UC San Francisco. So I work with all of our site teams and also am part of the coordinating center for the study that's based at UCSF. So the mission of these community forums and of the Wisdom Study as well is really to move together toward equity and better outcomes in breast cancer for everyone. And as part of that, that's our mission for our research, but it's also our mission for our approach to research and engagement, and really trying to build a dialogue and be able to interact and listen to what is most important to our community, and also understand what topics might be helpful for people to be able to discuss and hear from some of our breast cancer colleagues, as well as our breast cancer advocates and others that we work with in this field. So it's an opportunity to learn together and really to help to improve our approach to breast cancer in general. So we always start off just as a baseline trying to understand, why are we doing this? Why do we need to improve what we're doing in breast cancer? And we know that there are still 40,000 women a year dying of breast cancer. We know that we need to do better. Our standard approach isn't really moving the needle as quickly as we want it to. And also we know that breast cancer is not one disease, and people's risk of breast cancer is different. Some people may be at risk for more aggressive cancers and others are not. There are subsets of women and groups of women who may be at risk for more aggressive cancers at younger ages. And so we're really trying to understand all of the different components that are the picture or the puzzle of what breast cancer risk may look like. We know that family history is not the only thing that contributes to breast cancer risk. It's what most people talk about, but there are many other factors. And so we want to make sure that we are looking at all of the factors, because some women develop breast cancer with no family history, and some women with a strong family history will never get breast cancer. So there's lots of components to that puzzle. We also know that outcomes for breast cancer are worse for some communities. And we're really trying to make sure that we can tackle that challenge of improving outcomes, and also trying to intervene and provide risk reduction to those who may be at risk of more aggressive cancers. All right. And thank you everyone for introducing yourself in the chat. It looks like we've got a great group, as Jen pointed out, of survivors and advocates and researchers and policy and program individuals, community health workers. So thank you for being part of this discussion. We've just had these monthly community forums for just over a year now, and you can see a lot of the topics that we've had in the past. What is risk? What are some of the different components of risk? How do we measure risk? How do we describe breast cancer across a lifetime? So on and so forth. And this month we'll be talking about breast cancer and nutrition. And so the format, if you've never joined one of these before, we want this to be interactive. We want to hear your questions. You can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. Feel free, throughout the discussion to ask and pose questions. We can ask them live for you. The goal is to not just have a straight presentation. We want to be able to have a dialogue and to be able to ask questions throughout. If you're not speaking, if you could mute yourself, that would be very helpful. We are recording this so that we can make it available to people who weren't able to join. And then we do have a short survey at the end where we'd love to hear from you what topics you'd like to discuss on one of our next monthly forums. All right, so without further ado, I will introduce you to our speakers for today. So first and foremost, we have Ayanna Davis, who is a, registered, hold on, it just said that my Zoom quit. Hopefully that didn't happen.
We can still hear you, but your video stopped momentarily.
Okay. Well, let's work. Okay, well, I will keep talking. So hold on, let me get this out of the way. Okay. Okay, so Ayanna Davis is a registered dietitian nutritionist who specializes in oncology nutrition. She also is the owner of Ayanna Davis Nutrition, and she's one of our UCSF Health Cancer Center dietitians as well. So she works with clients throughout their cancer journey, from diagnosis to treatment to survivorship, and helps to provide individual recommendations to help optimize nutrition based on personal needs. And her approach is focused on whole foods and a plant-centered approach to diet, and supporting clients or patients in a personalized step-by-step manner. And then I've introduced myself. And then finally, we have Jennifer James, who is a sociologist and qualitative health researcher here at UCSF. She has been part of our wisdom team since the beginning and is also leading the embedded ethics study that is part of the wisdom study. All right, can you guys see my screen still? Okay. So with that, I am actually going to pass the screen over to Ayanna, who will give you guys an overview of her presentation. Again, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. This is meant to be interactive, so if a question pops up, please stick it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll be sure to get it addressed throughout the presentation. All right, so I will stop sharing. Let's see, there we go. All right, I'll take it away.
Okay, hi everybody. Just a minute. I'm going to share my presentation. There we go. Okay, let's see if this. Hold on, I'm going to fix this up. Okay. Do we have it right now?
Looks great.
Great. So as Allison mentioned, I'm going to talk today about nutrition and for breast cancer risk reduction. That's correct. That's a more accurate term than prevention. So I'm going to start with the American Institute of Cancer Research, which is an organization, if you're not familiar, who does a lot of the studies around food and lifestyle and cancer. And they came up with recommendations for prevention. Their first recommendation is eating a diet rich in whole foods, whole grains, vegetables, fruits, and beans, limiting consumptions of fast foods, and other processed foods that are high in fat, starches, or sugar, limiting consumption of red and processed meats, limiting consumption of sugar-sweetened drinks, lowering alcohol, and also avoiding the use of supplements specifically for cancer prevention, but rather using food to add nutrients in. And then if you have the, if you're a mom and you have the opportunity to breastfeed and you're able to, breastfeeding for over 6 months has been shown to reduce the risk for breast cancer as well. Aiming to be in a healthy weight throughout life and being physically active. So I'm going to break it down from here. So to start with, trying to really focus on a whole foods, plant-based diet. It doesn't mean you have to become a vegan and not have any animal protein, but rather really, kind of thinking of 75% of your diet from whole foods. And really the benefits of that is that it has been shown to reduce the risk not only for cancer, a few types of cancers, but also diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease. So it's good for a lot of different health benefits. And we really think about it not on not one superfood that you're going to eat and is going to help you prevent disease, but a whole diet eating pattern throughout life that really helps with risk reduction. A whole foods plant-based diet also helps increase the intake of the different vitamins and minerals that you need. It's high in fiber, which has been shown to be protective. And then phytochemicals, different cancer-fighting chemicals in the diet. And when you're thinking about, those different types of plant foods, think color, okay? Really choosing different colors of the rainbow, if you will, on your plate. So planning for a minimum of 5, but preferably really getting to 8 to 10 servings of colorful fruits and vegetables every day. So that will look like 3 cups of vegetables, and then maybe 2 or 3 servings of fruits per day to achieve that. And those different colors have different phytonutrients, protective components in the food. So for example, grapes have resveratrol in them, also berries do. And tomatoes have lycopene in them. That's another phytonutrient, antioxidant. So really different ones. Broccoli here has what's called sulforaphane, which is in all the cruciferous vegetable. So different ones have different benefits, and variety is best. So to give you some ideas of other ways to enhance the absorption of those phytonutrients, how do we get the most benefit out of the foods that we're eating when we're trying to eat this healthy diet? For example, tomatoes and avocados. So tomato has lycopene, that's the phytonutrient in it, and it's best absorbed when there is some fat in those combined with the food. So avocados, olive oils, nuts, and actually even cooking the tomatoes gives you a further benefit. So when the tomatoes are cooked, you get more of those lycopenes absorbed in your body. When you have your green tea that has catechins, it's called, adding lemon to that allows the body to absorb them better. Turmeric, I'm sure a lot of you heard about turmeric as an anti-inflammatory compound, has curcumin in it. Adding a little bit of black pepper will make it 1,000 times more bioavailable to your body cells. Combining peppers or other foods that have vitamin C with your leafy greens help triples the absorption of the iron from these foods. Combining the berries, so having mixed berries rather than just one berry on its own. All those antioxidants work synergetically. So that's a benefit as well. Broccoli and tomatoes. So really, if we look at this whole sheet, like having some, primavera sauce with broccoli for your whole wheat pasta could be a great meal to have to get the most benefit from the nutrients. And then apples and walnuts as well. So quercetin is a phytonutrient in apples, and allergic acid in walnuts work together and help with the absorption. And then another really beneficial things besides making the food taste better, spicing up the food, again, has, there's a lot of research around the anti-inflammatory effect of different herbs and spices. So some example of ones that have been found to be beneficial: garlic, cinnamon, red pepper, parsley, turmeric, fennel, fenugreek, cloves, ginger, black cumin, all are really helpful. Other ones, cilantro, your Italian herbs, oregano, thyme, rosemary, all are awesome to add into your food.
Ayana, one question, people really like that sheet, the one prior to this with the combinations. Is that something that we can provide to them through an email or share on our website?
Yeah, I'll send you the PDF of it.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Remind me later.
Yes.
Okay, so to continue with the whole foods, plant-based diet, we want to add also whole grains and beans into our diet. So benefits of whole grains: They're not just, they also have, you know, when you eat them whole without processing them down into just starch, you get antioxidants in them. You have different vitamins like vitamin E in them, minerals, they're higher in fiber, and also different phytochemicals. Beans as well, besides having all that, they also are a high plant protein source. So they're really great to add on a daily basis. And the darker beans, like the black beans, the red beans, also have those phytochemicals similar to like your dark berries, right? So that red color, that black color, they have some benefits as well.
Can I ask a question about beans? So
Mhm.
is there a difference between beans that you cook yourself versus beans that come in a can?
So you can eat either. I think that I always go for like, if you don't have time to soak the beans overnight and cook them, I'd rather you have some beans in your diet and use cans. It's easy, it's convenient. What I would recommend is to buy the ones from the cans, like Eden is one brand that are without the, what's it called, the BPA,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, without the toxins that come from the metals.
Mm-hmm.
So they're covered.
And if you do have canned beans, rinsing them?
Yeah, definitely rinse them first. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I would recommend to buy the low sodium version as well, and just, you know, use your own salt to taste.
Okay. And then another question is about frozen beans. Are those better than canned beans?
Those would be I mean, they're similar, would be more similar to probably to the dried beans in how they would cook them, and then they would dry them up, then use them up. I think they're all similar.
Okay.
There isn't a lot of downside for eating canned beans, I would say. Yeah. Any other questions?
There is one more, says some foods are better for you eaten raw and others are more nutritious when they're cooked. Is there sort of any tricks to remembering which ones are which, or a?
Yeah, you know what? When I send you that sheet with the combinations, I'll also send you a PDF with that for everyone, because awesome. I do have that as well. I didn't include it in this presentation, but
wonderful.
It's hard to remember, even for me, hard to remember off the top of my head everything. I would say tomatoes, I can remember that I cooked are better.
Interesting.
You know, garlic raw is better. Beets, you want to, I believe, cooked are better. So it's just, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to add a but to that if you, I always think that eating the vegetables how you enjoy them most is the best way to eat them, because you'll eat more of it. And food should be for pleasure too, not just for how. Should be for pleasure first. Okay, so the other thing that is important to add into your diet, those healthy fats, heart healthy fats, but also, you know, omega-3, you know, so avocados and extra virgin olive oil, those are omega-9s. Extra virgin olive oil has some antioxidants, polyphenols in it as well. So I really love using that for everything. Nuts and seeds, those are chia seeds or flax seeds, are really great too. They have both have some research around breast cancer. So incorporating them on a daily basis is a good thing. Walnuts, pecans, all variety of nuts and seeds. And then for fatty fish, you want to try to include that 2-3 times a week to get enough omega-3 in your diet. Some other example besides wild-caught salmon, sardines are great. Trout, cod, herring, those would be the smaller fish, but high in omega-3 fatty acids, so they have less mercury in them. And again, that helps reduce inflammation in the body. So to put it all together, what does your plate look like when you're having your meal? You have your couple of fruits and a couple of veggies, different colors. You have your lean or plant protein source. And I'll talk in a minute about different protein sources. And then you have your whole grains or starchy vegetable like a potato or sweet potato in there. And using some healthy fats for cooking, or as, kind of on top if you have something with avocado or nuts or seeds. And drinking lots of water. That's something, water helps detoxify the system, basically. So really trying to stay well hydrated throughout the day.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yeah.
So this gorgeous plate, this is such a bad time of day. I'm like ready to go have my dinner now. I'm like, oh, this looks great. Where is it? But it doesn't have any blue or purple on it, right?
That's
So eating the rainbow, is that we should eat the rainbow every day, every meal, every week? How often? And
I try every day, and you may not get all the colors of the rainbow every day, but that's like an aim. But there's many, I would say, think about like having as many colors as you can on your plate. Like, so maybe, in your breakfast, you add some blueberries and blackberries to your smoothie or to your oats or whatever you're having for breakfast. But throughout your day, within your 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, you want to have the different colors.
Question on water. 2 questions actually. Is there a sort of rule of thumb of how much water you should drink a day? And then also with the sort of sparkling waters or, flavored waters, hint of flavor waters, do those count, or is there a downside to drinking too many of those carbonated waters?
Yeah, so definitely. So in terms of rule of thumb, your weight in pounds divided by 2, that's how many ounces per day. That's an easy calculation, like a quick one. Up to about 80 ounces. I mean, beyond that, yeah. And then in terms of sources of hydration, sparkling water is great too. That's hydration. Broth counts as well. So something like a soup will count as hydration. Tea is hydration. So you can vary it up. I would, the thing with the one thing with the sparkling waters and as to how much to drink a day, other than like your Pellegrino, which is almost like regular water, they're a little more acidic. So, some dentists actually recommend not to drink too much, just not to harm the teeth. But other than that, there's no, like, it is a great source of hydration. So like,
and then there's a follow-up on alkaline water.
Mm-hmm.
Any benefit to alkaline water?
And maybe what is alkaline water?
Yeah, yes, what is alkaline water? Thank you.
That's good. Yeah. So alkaline. So the acid alkaline, there's like a ratio in terms of the minerals that are in there, and what makes it more alkaline is it has more plus. Like if you remember any, from chemistry, like calcium is a positive ion, and there's certain ones that are negative. So that creates the acidity or alkalinity of the water. So usually water is pretty neutral. Like I think I'm trying to remember what is the actual, but it's somewhere in the middle in terms of the pH of the water. And alkaline water is like 9, so regular would be 7 or something like that, which is somewhere in the middle of the pH. There is some research around reducing GERD in terms of alkaline water. Other than that, I'm not familiar with a particular benefit of it. And then some people just like it better, but that's different, for taste. But also no harm in drinking it. Yeah, it's not going to be, it has added minerals to it.
And then similar question, distilled water.
Mm-hmm.
Any differences?
Reverse osmosis? More?
Potentially.
Yeah. So again, all these waters, they remove, one of the things with that is that they remove a lot of those minerals, and then they'll put some, but they also remove the chlorine. And so for that, if you don't want to have any of the whatever we add to make sure our water is safe, like chlorine we use in this country and other potentially things that are I don't know exactly what we have here in the Bay Area, but or in different places in the country, they add different things. Depends on the water municipality. But yeah, it will be cleaner if you buy something that has been filtered again.
All right, there was a couple other questions. Maybe I'll ask so they don't get lost in the chat. For
Yeah.
daily chia and flax, is there guidance on how much?
Mm-hmm. About 2 tablespoons per day, and I would mix them up. Now, one thing with chia and flax seeds, they do have a laxative effect. So if you never had them before, start slow. Have like maybe a half a tablespoon to start with, so it doesn't send you to the bathroom. And then chia seeds can be eaten the way they are, but flax seeds you want to ground them up to absorb the nutrients in them. Now, if you buy them ground, or if you ground the bunch up and you want to preserve the nutrients, you want to put it in the fridge for the flax seeds.
And then there's one other question in the chat. Other ideas for blue and purple color fruits and vegetables. I think you mentioned grapes and a couple other things, but any other ideas to share?
The berries, and then I've seen purple cauliflower recently.
Mhm.
That's really fun and really tasty. I mean, kind of tastes similar to regular cauliflower.
I love purple bell pepper. Have you ever had purple bell pepper? It's really good. I think it's sweeter. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, eggplant is just the skin that will be purple. If anything else comes to mind, I'll mention it.
Oh, someone mentioned purple cabbage.
Purple cabbage, that's right.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the leafy greens, some of them will be, so there's like the purple kale, the more, towards that.
Great. Oh, and blue corn was another one thrown out there. Yeah, we'll have to start collating a list and send it around with your PDFs.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, those are all the.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue on. All right, so actually, before I continue on, I want to just, when you think of, again, I talked about the whole dietary pattern over time. That's it, we want to think about most of the time adding good things into our diet. Okay, now we're going to get to the limiting part. So, but always also think about what else good do I add on my plate rather than just what I can't eat all the time. Okay, so we do want to, reduce the amount of red meat, and really trying to processed meats. There's, I'd say, enough research to say to try to avoid it completely, to help reduce cancer risk. For red meat, which would be beef, pork, and lamb, we recommend, the American Institute of Cancer Research recommends about 12 to 18 ounces per week max. So you can have some of it in your diet, just trying to reduce the amount, not every meal. But in place of those, you can always choose lean protein like fish, chicken without the skin, tofu, and beans as an alternative to red meat. If you are having red meat, trying to choose the leaner cuts of the meat, so things like 95% ground beef or pork or lamb, or 95% lean. A loin or a round cut, those are the leaner cuts. In terms of the cooking methods, actually, lower temperature for a longer time is better in terms of cooking. So baking, poaching, roasting, which is like also kind of a little lower fat, but trying to avoid the frying, which produces more oxidation, which is inflammatory. And then charbroiling or grilling, also the grilling process, which is really high temperature, especially with the higher fat red meats, produces carcinogens as well. So you want to try to really limit the amount of grilling, especially with the higher fat meats.
I have a question on, I feel like the craze right now is with air fryers. Do you lump that together with with actual frying, or do you consider that its own?
It is a high temperature cooking method, but it's lower in fat, right? So it's not like you're not deep frying when you're air frying. That's the difference. So I think that's a better choice, better option for sure as an alternative. And in terms of in terms of also like the grilling or the fry, especially the meats will be with the grilling is what produces the carcinogens. So not vegetables on the grill.
And is that the case too with the fish, poultry, etc.? Broiling it, does that cause a change in the quality?
Yeah,
or the
any of the animal protein would. The leaner, the better. The less. So less time and leaner cuts would be better. And then if you are marinating it first, you also reduce the amount of carcinogens that it produces. Yeah.
I'm curious if you follow a similar mindset with things like that. Is like, you're like vegetables, whatever way you eat it, like that's the way, whatever way you like it. Is it the same thing? Like if the only way I want to eat tofu is if it's fried, should I still do it because I'm eating tofu? If the only way I want to eat beans is refried beans, is that better than having, or like, how do you sort of think about
I would say that it's better than a hot dog. I would try to choose so even with tofu, I like to pan fry it with you want it to taste good, but also you want to think of how is it refried, right? What kind of fats are in there? Is it lard or is it some sort of vegetable oil or something, so you do want to be mindful of the amount of fat and what happens to the fats when you're using them, right? So I would say, so no, the answer is no.
It's hard. I think someone is raising a question too. It's like, I know I should use the really, really lean, but it just doesn't taste as good. Like, I think it's how we find a balance is so tough, right?
So I think, and again, with chicken, for example, I think the eating so there's a lot of nuance, right? So maybe if you're want to eat the higher fat, piece of brisket or something, right? Super high fat. You just eat not as frequently, right? So that's the balance that you have to kind of find, right?
And since Jen brought up tofu, there's also a question speaking about soy. Is soy good or bad? And in particular with breast cancer, you often hear about soy.
So should we get to that? I do have a couple of slides about it. Should we table that?
Yeah, we can table it and maybe come to it when you have your slides. Yeah. And then the question came back up about broiling meat. So sounds like it's depending on the type of meat, better to do lower temperatures, longer time. But if it's one of the leaner meats or non-red meat, not as bad as broiling a
definitely not
piece of red meat.
Yeah, and then what I would say, with chicken, if you like the dark meat, take the skin off. That's the main part. I would say, you can cook it with the skin to get the flavor, but I would take it off before eating it, because that's going to be the high saturated fat that you're getting that is more harmful. And the difference between chicken breast and the dark meat of the chicken is 1 or 2 grams of fat. It's not so hard per ounce. Okay, so as much as possible, again, I'm not saying never have a cake or a dessert again in your life, but most of the time trying to have healthier choices. So just thinking of alternatives in terms of instead of processed foods, eating more more whole foods and switching sweetened beverages to the sparkling flavored sparkling water that somebody was asking about. That would be a better option. Maybe having like a yogurt parfait with some fruits, so some more whole foods instead of an ice cream. I know it's not going to happen every time, not for me either, but some of the times. So those are just some ideas of just making a healthier choice in terms of drinks and desserts.
On just like the ice cream and the soda ones, I'm curious if you can speak to like all the fake sugar things. There's like such a range of them now, and I feel like there's always rumors about like aspartame causes this, but then what is about stevia and what about
for the diet or like sweetened sugar replacers, what do you call it? Yeah, so even with the older ones that we used to use, like aspartame or what's some of the other ones now I'm forgetting, sweet and low, and in order to for the studies that show that they cause cancer, like it was in mice, and it was super high dose compared to the weight of the mouse, right? So we don't think that a little bit in humans is going to cause that, unless you drink like a gallon of diet soda every day that has aspartame. That could be a much larger amount, right? So now, in terms of the ones that would probably be the better choices, yes, stevia and monk fruit. So stevia is made from like cactus, and then monk fruit from monk fruit. Those are probably my preferred things that I would recommend to use as a replacer for sugar. Now, in terms of like, maybe you have a question of like how much added sugar per day you should have. So we want to try to have less than about 5-6 teaspoons per day of added sugar, which is about 25-30 grams of added sugar. So when you're looking at labels, it will say, now they have to say added sugar. You want to try to, choose the lower amount there.
And I guess, so it sounds like, we know that some of the aspartames, there is some data that in big amounts can be carcinogenic. It seems like a lot of the newer ones that are out, we don't know, or they're better, maybe. And I guess I'm curious from your perspective. Oh, someone asked about date paste. I love date paste. Make it at home. But someone asked from your perspective about like, I guess I'm curious if, usually I have fruit, but today I'm going to have ice cream. Mm-hmm. Like, should I just go for like the good Haagen-Dazs, whatever, or should I have like Halo Top or one of all these alternative ones, or does that matter if usually I'm having fruit after dinner?
Yeah, I would say if this is like your treat, you should have the one. That's my approach, is like have the one that satisfies your crave, really. Like if the other alternative is not going to give you the same satisfaction, you're going to just want more, and it's not going to do the so I think if that's your treat, like go with the treat that you like best, even if it's going to be higher in fat and sugar, like that's
I think there's another question.
That all dietitians will agree with me, but I think that if you're going to have dessert, have the dessert that you want to have. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a question that's a good follow-on to that, which is sugar rebound a real thing? For example, when you eat something sweet, you get hunger pains and want more sweets. If you give up sweets, the cravings go away. So is that universal, or does that just depend on the person?
Yeah. I think it does depend on the person, but also, there is some data that shows that, eating, the more sugar you eat, kind of, you do want it more. But, on the other hand, like, I also find in my work that people who just, go on a low carb diet, they crave a lot they tend to actually crave more sweets and sugars. And I think it's just because they don't have enough of the carbohydrates in their diet. So, trying to limit those added sugars, but not necessarily like all carbohydrates, right? That answers the question, but.
And
Yeah, it could, yes, I do find that people who eat more want more, but like everyone, I think that everyone is a little different, where like some people can just have once a week dessert and be happy, or once a day, or whatever it is for them.
Mhm.
And, you know, some people it's harder for them to, if they have to just have one, it's easy not to have any.
And back to the date paste, that was a question, is date paste or sugar okay? And for some people, can you describe what date paste is?
Yeah, so basically it's like, it's a sweetener, you mean Ceylon, right? Like date syrup. Is that what you mean by that? Whoever asked that question?
Probably. You can
Like
get it in all
extra
forms. Yeah, they like sometimes will
make it
grind,
like looking like a syrup, it looks like a
yeah.
syrup more.
Or even a paste, like you can make a paste. You just like grind up dates with
Mhm.
water and you can make a
Oh,
paste you can
okay.
use to sweeten stuff. It's really quite delicious. I highly recommend.
Yeah, I think that's
Personally, as a non-nutritionist, it's good.
I think that's actually a really great way to use, you know, there's a lot of good recipes too that use dates, whole dates, because again, you're going to get some more, you're going to get some fiber in there, right? You're using it's a dried fruit, but you're using the whole fruit rather than just eating, you know, processing it down to a sugar. So that's definitely a better alternative. Mhm. Can I?
Those are, yep, let's keep going. Those are all the questions for now.
So alcohol, there, unfortunately, I would say, there is research around, you know, alcohol increasing the risk for breast cancer specifically. You know, if you can, if you're okay with not drinking at all, that's ideal. But if that's like you really enjoy a glass of wine, trying to limit to less than 2 drinks a week, that's what my recommendation normally, because there studies show that 3 or more drinks per day, or per week increase the risk, for breast cancer. And then this is just what is the serving size of alcohol. So 1.5 fluid ounces of a hard liquor, 5 fluid ounces of wine is 1 serving, and 12 ounces of beer.
And with that recommendation of limiting alcohol, are there certain ones that are better than others? Like, is it better to have red wine than it is beer, or?
Yeah, I mean, red wine will have some resveratrol in it, so that's a benefit of it. But again, you really just want to try to reduce the amount with alcohol. And then for physical activity, you know, even beyond cancer, but you know, there's a lot of research around the benefit of physical activity and risk reduction from cancer. Aiming for 150 minutes a week, so that's about 30 minutes, 5 days per week of moderate activity, which is, it could be cycling, could be walking, could be dancing, you know, trying to keep it fun, right? And then if you're over 40, I always recommend to add a couple days a week of strength training as well. And that helps preserve not only your muscle mass, but also your bone density. So that's really important to try to add in. And I find harder, you know, people don't have it as much in their routine, and really trying to go up in the weight if you can, or using your own body weight. Okay, so I'll keep going to the, supplements, right? So basically, you know, the reason why we don't recommend supplements as a cancer prevention, there isn't enough evidence that suggests that they help. And then, you know, so as much as possible, eating that varied diet to get all the nutrients through diet. There are certain supplements that, you know, there have been studies that showed an increase in risk of cancer, is vitamin E and prostate cancer, not so relevant for this group. And beta carotene, which is vitamin A, a precursor for vitamin A with lung cancer in smokers, has increased the risk to get cancer. Now, if you have other health concerns, if there are deficiencies and your doctor says you need to supplement, of course, supplement. You know, if you have B12 or iron or anything like that, the vitamin D. I do want to point out one vitamin, which is vitamin D, that has been shown to be protective, associated with lower risk of colon cancer and breast cancer and some other cancers. It's also important for bone health and immune system function. So let's say that's the one vitamin that I would ask your doctor to check. You get vitamin D from the sun, that's the main source. And then fatty fish, eggs, fortified foods, and then taking a supplement. The minimum, recommend daily amount for adults is 600 international units. And there is an estimated pretty high number of Americans don't get, have a low blood level of vitamin D. So if you can get your doctor to check your level before supplementing, that's better, because then if you need it. Because if you have enough, if your levels are normal, there isn't an added benefit from taking the supplement. Okay, so yes.
I was going to say, just related to that, are there any, I think something we think about with breast cancer is obviously hormones. Is there a relationship between our diet and hormones and specific hormone levels we should either be measuring or watching out for, or if we know is a thing that our diet can change at eating this will lower or raise our estrogen, or any of that?
So, one thing that will lower estrogen level is eating a high fiber diet. Because fiber does bind to estrogen and helps remove it in the stool. So, trying to eat at least 25 grams or more fiber per day. And then a diet that alcohol also raises estrogen, which is one of the reasons we think it's associated to breast cancer, with breast cancer risk. So that's the reason not to drink alcohol as much. And then I'm going to go over sugar, what happens with sugar, but also, that higher levels of more of a processed food diet or higher levels of sugar that increases insulin level, which is a different hormone, but that can increase risk as well. So that's the ones that okay, so a question that I get a lot is, does sugar feed cancer, and should I completely avoid it? So the claim of that recommendation is that tumors prefer sugar for energy and will use more than normal cells. Consuming sugar can result in cancer growing and spreading more quickly, and avoiding all sources of sugar will inhibit the cancer cells. Fact is that glucose is a primary energy source so that's glucose is a sugar, right? Is a primary source of energy for all of our body cells. So we need glucose for our cells to function. When you digest carbohydrates, foods that have carbohydrate, that's what produces glucose and goes into our cells to feed them. If there isn't any glucose, if we're going to go on really low carb diet or ketogenic diet, what our body will do is it will produce some glucose from protein and from fat. It works harder to do that, but it has to have some to feed its cells. If we can't live without it. However, cancer cells are, use 50 to 100 times more glucose than normal cells, so that we know. So yes, sugar does feed cancer, like it does all other cells. But the biggest concern with that, rather than the sugar itself, is what happens when we eat sugar. Our insulin level, so that's the hormone that gets released for us to help us digest, bring the sugar into our cells. When that raises and stays high for too long, that part is what we think really contributes to the cancer cell growth. So eating more of a whole foods diet, higher fiber, less processed foods, that adding fat and protein, having more of like this balanced plate, right? That helps us avoid the surge of the sugar and the insulin that follows that, and keep our blood sugar kind of within very stable state throughout the day. It goes up, down, but pretty stable. As well as exercising and physical activity, that's super effective for reducing sugar, for reducing insulin in our blood. So like going for a 15-minute walk after you ate, really beneficial. Even 10 minutes or up has been shown to be really helpful for blood sugar reduction and reducing insulin levels. And then for soy, I also definitely get this weekly in my practice. People are like, should I eat soy? Should I avoid it? So first of all, what are the benefits of soybeans? So soybeans are a good source of plant protein. They're actually the only complete plant protein, meaning it has all the essential amino acids in it that we need in our body. Fiber, it has potassium, magnesium, copper, and manganese. Those are different minerals that we need. And then they can contain different variety of health promoting compounds like isoflavones, saponins, other complicated words. But those are different phytonutrients and healthy fats. So what's the controversy? Why is there controversial? So soy, isoflavones, which is one of the compounds in soy, is an estrogen-like compound. So it's called a phytoestrogen. And that was the concern, when they did early studies around that and hormone-related cancers. However, isoflavones have been shown to be have very weak estrogenic activity in our body, like 1,000 times weaker than actual human estrogens. So we don't think it has much of an impact. So some of the research around it. So consistently human studies show no increased risk for breast cancer from eating soy foods. And then there is evidence suggesting lower risk level if you're having it if you eat soy during your adolescence years. And then there's over 11,000 breast cancer patients in the US and China. 5 different studies found that post-diagnosis soy intake significantly reduced recurrence and improved survival, both in estrogen receptor positive and estrogen receptor negative breast cancers in pre and postmenopausal women. So it seems to have a benefit later on if you do get breast cancer. So basically it's safe to consume soy. And then the benefits really do come from your whole soy products. So edamame, tofu, tempeh, unsweetened soy milk, soy nuts, and trying to eat about, up to 3 servings a day, not 10 servings a day is kind of a typical amount that you would want to consume. And a serving is a cup of soy milk, I have a cup of cooked soybeans, or edamame, and 1/3 of a cup of tofu. Still recommend to avoid any of the heavily processed soy foods that are added into food products.
There's a question about if you were given soy formula, I'm assuming as an infant, if there's any increased risk.
I don't know the answer to that one. I can look it up and respond.
We can follow up.
With that one.
Yes. Okay, great. And we just have a few minutes left. I think you maybe just have 1 or 2 more slides.
Yeah,
so good timing.
So we got
good timing.
Thought it would be shorter, but we were interactive. Right?
Yeah.
So that's good. So the last thing, if you're wondering about organic versus conventional produce, basically, again, eat more vegetables. If cost is an issue, and I'd rather you eat more fruits and vegetables and not buy them because they're not organic. But there are, the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, if anyone wants to look that up. They come up with the list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 every year. So the Dirty Dozen are the most highly, sprayed. They check for the carcinogens basically in the produce. They test for it, and those are the higher pesticide ones, and the clean 15 are the ones that are not as that are safer to eat, conventional. So, you know, I usually buy conventional avocados. They're much cheaper, for example, and they're on the clean 15 list. Yeah. So any other questions? This was the last slide. So yeah, a couple minutes.
I don't see any more. Oh, let's see. Microbiome. How does feeding your microbiome impact breast cancer risk? And we also just launched the poll if you guys want to answer that while this question is being answered.
So we don't have a ton around the microbiome and breast cancer specifically. There's more around, you know, the colon cancer actually. So, but however, you know, I always, you know, for overall health, for your digestive health, I do absolutely recommend to try to feed the microbiome with all these colors that we talked about. That helps, and all the variety of the plant foods also helps with your microbiome. But there isn't specific like probiotics or anything that have been shown to help reduce risk for breast cancer.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let's see. The comment is, this is a good diet for cancer prevention. Is it better to avoid or eliminate completely animal products when diagnosed or survive cancer?
Sorry, I'm going to stop the share. No, actually, the research does not show that completely eliminating animal proteins is an added benefit. Becoming vegan is an added benefit. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that actually just makes me think, I feel like I'm sort of getting to the closeout stuff, but what's so hard to me about this is that there's so many different answers, because you'd find so many people that are like, veganism is the way. You will have zero health issues ever if you're, you know, you see both sides. Anything you do, oh, I want to eat more fish.
But what a blessing to have a best friend that long.
Oh, I think someone's not muted. But like, you know, I think it's like, I want to eat more fish, but you can't eat this fish. It has to be farm raised, but not this one. And, you know, how do you not sort of end up in this spiral of like guilt and shame and wrong decisions? And one time I ate a hot dog on the 4th of July. So now, like, how do you approach it when there's such conflicting advice and the horribleness of the diet industry? And
I know. And I feel you, because it is like more like a religion almost. It's getting drilled, and on social media that makes it even. You know, first of all, I try to look at guidelines from reputable organizations, right? Not just look at on the influencer of the, you know, on Instagram that tells me that I'm going to kill myself if I touch sugar, right? Because it's just not true, right? So that's one thing, but really just, you know, even for my life, right? I try to have a very balanced, healthy approach to it. I'm like, if I want to treat myself with a baked good, I will. And again, 80% of the time, I try to put good foods in my body. And I try to have that checklist of the good, you know, having enough fruits and vegetables, having enough whole grains and beans and in my diet overall. And then, you know, sometimes I'm going to feel like, again, you know, I have 2 children. They want pancakes every day for breakfast. It's like, okay.
sometimes it's Halloween, you gotta give a sweet.
But some days you're gonna eat them, you know. So of course, I don't think that it's, you know, just trying to over the course of your life, most of the time, to do the good stuff, and then also you gotta leave. That's okay.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so informative. I've learned a lot. There's some great praise in the chat of people who really appreciated this presentation. We will share the link and the slides, and we'll share whatever PDF resources that Ayana can give for us.
Yeah.
And then I have the contact information for the wisdom study. Our next forum is February 27th, the last Monday of the month. TBD is to be determined. We are hoping to take the answers to that survey and build the agenda topic for next month based on what everyone is most interested in hearing. I also wanted to make just a quick plug for free and in-person event that is happening in the Bay Area in East Palo Alto. I'm not sure if there's a virtual component to it, but it is off to a good start. It's an annual physical and activity and nutrition program. This is one of our community leadership board members, organizations, and initiatives, the Bay Area Community Health Advisory Council. So we'll put this in the summary as well. There's lots of resources that we can provide, and we'll do so as we follow up with everyone. But thank you so much, Ayana, for joining us today. Thank you, Jen, and thank you everyone for your excellent questions. This was a great forum and very informative for us all. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll hope to see you in February.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.